Hey everyone, welcome to the Halo Wars 2 Beginner's Guide. This video is going to focus on the Banished faction and just a general overall introduction on how to play as the Banished. Got some pretty good feedback from my original UNSC Beginner's Guide video, so if you'd like to check that one out, I'll leave a card on the video as well as in the video description. And if you want to continue this conversation, if you have more further questions, a great place to get some help is our Discord server. Link to that is down below. As for this video, I want to make sure the expectations are set that this video is designed for new players into Halo Wars 2, not people who have a lot of experience in the game or people who are really good at the game. This video is not for you. You're welcome to watch it, of course, but you're not the targeted audience. So for the Banished faction, there are 8 leaders for the Banished, and 3 of them come standard with the base edition of the game: Atriox, Decimus, and Shipmaster. If you get the Season Pass of Halo Wars 2, you'll also receive Colony, and Arbiter, and Yap Yap. The last 2 Banished leaders, Vortis and Pavium, they come with the Awakening the Nightmare expansion. These will not be included in the Season Pass. So if you want to get every leader in the game, I really recommend getting the complete edition of Halo Wars 2. You just get everything in one little package. For the sake of this video, I'm going to be playing as Atriox because everyone has that leader in the game. So once the game loads up here, the Banished build is quite similar to the UNSC build. You need to understand on what sort of a map you're playing on of what you want to target for. So for the sake of this video, we're playing on Vault, which is a pretty big map. I really like going for these side crates here, and there's 2 ways we could go about doing this. We could send a starting grunt squad over there, or we can build a chopper as soon as the game starts. And you may think that the 25 seconds it takes to build will be slower than a grunt squad moving over there, but if you're going to go for a power, let's say this one all the way over here, the chopper will be faster. To start off, I'm going to be building a harvester first, and with the UNSC, usually my playstyle is I do a generator second, but I've seen some recommendations that going a harvester second may be more beneficial. So for the sake of this video, I'm actually going to go harvester second. And just like with the UNSC, starting out you really want to make sure that your grunts are busy going to get supply crates and power crates. Once this first harvester is done, we want to upgrade it immediately. The amount of supplies and power you get from upgraded harvesters and power extractors is really worth the investment. Next, now that both of our harvesters are done, I'm going to build a power extractor as well as upgrade our harvester here. And while my grunts are busy, I have since turned off Fog of War for this video, but it's also important that you go for mini base slots because that helps you get an advantage early in the game. Another beneficial part of having mini bases is if you plan on doing a chopper rush attack, you can build multiple choppers from both your base and your expo. This would probably be a good time to go over what will be next in our builds. If you're going to be doing a standard build where you're not planning on doing any sort of offensive moves early in the match, it's going to be more beneficial for you to do a power extractor on your 4th pad. Having 2 power extractors and upgrading them as soon as you get to 300 power for each will really help you get into Tech 2 and help you have a stable economy as you get into more of the what's called the mid-game of a Halo Wars match. For your 5th pad, it's kind of up to you to decide what you want to do. With the raid camp, you can build jump pack brutes and suicide grunts for rushing. You can go with a war council if you plan on going a leader build, or if you plan on building choppers, which are really good scout units and good anti-infantry units. You could even go another harvester. This is going to be a pretty basic build here, so I think I'm just going to go another harvester. As with the UNSC, no matter what leader you play as on either faction, it's really important that you start taking your power nodes as soon as possible. For a multitude of reasons, you get line of sight near your power nodes, and your power nodes give you 1.5 power per second, which I stated in the other video. It may not seem like a big deal, but as time goes on, that power is really going to stack up. Let's go over some of the pros and cons for the Banished faction. What's nice about the Banished is, as I stated earlier, the choppers are such a good Tech 1 unit. They're fast, they're powerful, and their ramming ability is really useful. So I really recommend that you make choppers. Suicide Grunts are really great for Tech 1. They can eliminate a rush or start one if you have an opponent that is sending a bunch of infantry to your area and they're all kind of bunched together. Having some Suicide Grunts can really do some serious damage to that squad and maybe even eliminate the threat entirely. In the same other way, you can use Suicide Grunts to attack an enemy base or take out one of their structures if you're going on the offensive earlier in the game. The Banished also have Jump Pack Brutes, which are a pretty good anti-building unit to start off in the game, especially with the jumping ability they have with the jetpacks. Makes it pretty serious to launch an attack. The Banished also have shield towers and cloaking towers to be used on their turret slots. And the UNSC does not have these, and these can really help you if you have a surprise attack. The Cloaking Generator as well will protect your entire base if your opponent doesn't have any detect units. So building a Cloaking Generator alone will force your opponent to have at least one detect unit at any point they attack your base, which may not seem like a lot, but that could almost change their entire composition. Shield generators do stack, so if you build one shield generator and then a second one, you will have an added shield health. However, it doesn't double it. It's not, if you build 4 shield generators, you're not going to have 4 times the shield as one shield generator. So I really recommend no more than one. That is because the cost stacks for each shield generator. So if I build one here that's 600 and 200, the next one is 700 and 300, the next one is 800, 400, so on and so forth. If you're going to have 2 or 3 bases that you're going to have 2 shield generators on, you're going to be putting a lot of money into shield generators, so I just don't recommend it. The Banished also with some other leaders, particularly Pavium, he gets a special mega turret, which takes a base slot here, but that is a huge turret that deals a ton of damage, that has some serious range. The UNSC has nothing like that. They do have siege turrets, but it is not on the scale of the mega turrets. I also think that the Banished just have better powers than the UNSC. I'm going to name off some of the ones that I just think are just really creative and just better overall powers than what the UNSC has. Some of my favorites are the mega turret, the engineer heal that Colony has, the devastating host that Colony has, combat spoils that Vortis uses, please don't shoot me from Yap Yap, the healing abilities of combat repair and boundless siphon, that is for Colony and Decimus, and the Lich Vanguard from Pavium as well, are all really good powers. There's also the Glassing Beam, which is still a really OP power, as well as Teleport is so much better than the Pelican Transport that the UNSC has. It can really get you out of some serious situations. As hinted at a little bit earlier, the Banished also have better building killers than the UNSC. They also have some units that are designed specifically to be building killers, and they actually have 2 that come to my mind. It is the Jump Pack Brutes and the Locusts. So if you want to do some building damage, you can make units designed specifically for that. The UNSC don't really have that. They have units that kind of double as building killers, such as Scorpion tanks and flamethrowers. The Scarab is also a much better ultimate unit than a Condor. I'm not really sure the reason why, but the Condor just isn't that good of a ultimate unit, whereas the Scarab is. And if you've watched some of our Mythbusters videos, you'll see that the Scarab outperforms the Condor when they're facing different particular units, especially infantry. While our Expo base is building, I can name off some of the cons that the Banished faction has. Their anti-air units are more expensive than the UNSC, so if I build a foundry here, I can show you the cost in a couple of moments, but the Reavers cost a lot more power. I believe Reavers are 220 power, whereas the Wolverines are somewhere in the 180 range. It may not seem like a big deal, but if you're going to make, let's say, 10 or 15 of them, that's really going to add up, especially if you're going to be making a lot of Reavers throughout the game. I also think the Banished faction is a little bit more difficult to learn than the UNSC. The Banished have a creative approach to each of their leaders, and they all play very differently. And what I mean is that you're not going to play the same way as Pavium as you would, say, Shipmaster or Arbiter, or you wouldn't play the same as Decimus as you would for Colony. All of their leaders have a different kind of play style, and I think that's both a positive and a negative. If you're someone who's new into the game, it could be kind of overwhelming to see how all of these powers that the Banished have really work in their favor. So if you're struggling with that, my suggestion is to just play as one and get comfortable with it and then move on to a different one. And eventually you'll understand how the faction works overall, and then after that you can focus on an individual leader in the future. As I stated earlier, the anti-air units for the Banished cost more power than the UNSC, and that's really true across the board for a lot of the Banished units. The Elite Rangers cost a lot more power than the Flamethrowers, and we see this time and time again. Locusts cost a lot of power. The Banished units just cost more power than UNSC. Ooh, look at this. He wants to dance here. Let's see what we can do. Oh, he has Wraiths? He's Tech 3? Uh-oh. Holy cow. Once we get into Tech 2, you unlock the ability to build a Foundry, as well as the other air units in the Apex. My recommendation is Marauders are a great option when you get into Tech 2 and you're getting into the middle of the game. Reason being is Marauders don't cost any power to build, and they're a pretty good all-around vehicle, as the description says. I think they work really well against infantry, and they're pretty decent against vehicles and structures too. So I think going Marauders is great because you can use the power that you're not spending on Marauders and use that for something else, such as Reavers here that are a lot of power, Locusts that are a lot of power, and even upgrading your hero, as well as using it to invest in shield generators. Also, Banshees don't consume any power, and I would always make sure you have a couple of engineers on hand. The Y ability of the engineers is such a great option. It does a lot more than you think. It's always best to be using the Y ability of your engineers whenever you're in combat if you have some on hand. Once we expand our base, it's going to be important that we continue to be making economy buildings and not necessarily production buildings. So I have an Apex here as well as on my main. I'm going to demolish that because it's kind of a waste. I can rather be using that slot to have an additional power extractor that'll help me get into Tech 3. For the sake of this video, I have much more power than I need to go to Tech 3, but for this explanation, you really, I think 3 gens are a necessity, and putting your 3rd gen on an Expo will help you protect your power income should you lose your main base or your Expo. Spreading your power extractors around, I think, is great. As stated in the UNSC video, it's not recommended to put power extractors on your mini base. The reason being is the cost of power extractors goes up for each one that you have on the field. So if you put a pretty expensive power extractor on a mini base, it's not protected as well as something on your main, especially with shield and cloaking generators. It's just not a very smart move. If you're desperate, or if you have a lot of supplies laying around that you're not afraid to lose the investment on, that's the only thing I could see you building a power extractor on a mini base. Other than that, not recommended. Another fun fact, the Shrouds are a pretty cool unit because not only do they block incoming projectiles, or at least some of them, they can cloak your own units. The difference between this and the Nightingale's cloak is that you can still be in combat when your Shrouds have cloaked you. It's a great way to kind of have the edge on one of your opponent's bases if they do not have any sensor towers or watchtowers.
Shroud prepared.
Now that we're into Tech 3, you're going to unlock some really high-powered vehicles. This is the Wraith on the Foundry and the Blisterback from the Apex, and on your main base you can build the Cloaking Generators. They do not cost any power, and their cost does not stack either at the time of recording. Some people are advocating to change that, but for right now they don't. So the Cloaking Generator, I think, is a requirement on your bases. Reason being, again, is it forces your opponent to have some sort of detection unit, and that could impact their entire composition. I've seen a few times where people have shown up with, say, 3 Scarabs or 3 Condors, and they can't do anything to my base because it's cloaked. And since their population is full in their ultimate units, they can't do anything. They have to turn around and go away. Once we're in the late stages of the game, it's going to be really important that you start getting vehicle upgrades. This is pretty important because your army composition is going to move more in towards these heavy vehicles. So if you were to ask me what sort of army composition is the best, it's hard, again, to really give out a recommendation of a particular unit because it depends on who you're playing as and what your ally is playing as well as your opponent and the map. But generally, Wraiths are a really good army composition unit, mixed in with potentially some Reavers. Don't forget any Engineers. And lastly, I think Hunters are a great anti-infantry unit as well. Now, while the Banished do not have any siege turrets, you can actually more or less make one yourself. One of my favorite things to do is if you have a shielded base, and only if you have a shielded base, you can take a Blisterback and actually lock it down inside the radius of the shield. What this does is this actually has the shield protect the Blisterback, so if my opponent comes down here and manually selects this Blisterback, no damage will be done to it until the health of the shield goes down. The same is true with the Cloaking Generator. This Blisterback is actually cloaked and protected in the shield in here. So this is a great way to protect your base and have some artillery. Just keep in mind that the Blisterbacks consume 7 population each, so it may not seem like a lot, but if you put 2 or 3 on each of your bases, your population is going to be full of these Blisterbacks.
We are a vehicle down. Shroud under
Finally,
fire.
if it's late in the game and you think that you can afford it, the Scarab is a great unit. It's pretty good against almost every type of vehicle or unit that is thrown at it. Its Y ability makes it invincible for a short amount of time. And what's awesome about the Scarab is when you stack other things on top of it, such as healing leader powers or Blisterbacks to help deflect some incoming projectiles, or the Engineers to heal it, or if you're coloning, you can throw 3 skitters on this thing. Whatever the case may be, the Scarab is a great unit. It is really expensive, 2,000 of each. I would not build a Scarab until you have a solid army composition or some good upgrades research for your units and your leader. But other than that, the Scarab is an excellent choice for your army composition. I wouldn't say build nothing but Scarabs. I usually like to say people make Scarabs when they run out of ideas because they're so OP. But if you can't beat them, join them. They're also a very slow unit as well. Keep that in mind. The Scarab's not going to be something to run across the map to defend your base on a big map like Vault. What may work on one map and may not work on another. What is a Scarab a good unit to have on Vault? Maybe not. Is it a good map on Sentry? Oh, absolutely. That pretty much concludes the basics of playing as the Banished. Just remember to keep sure that you have a fair amount of economy buildings. I see way too many times people have like 3 or 4 foundries or garages when they only have 1 or 2 supply pads or harvesters. You really need to make sure that you're fueling the units that you have, and the way to do that is to make economy buildings. You can never really have too much supplies as long as your army can be built in the appropriate time that you need it to. Speaking of army, make sure you always have one. When you don't have any units, all the upgrades in the world are not going to do anything if you have no units to take advantage of those upgrades. So I would always make sure that you're either building units or you have your army completely maxed out and ready to go for an attack or be prepared to defend. If you really enjoyed this video, please consider dropping a like on the video. There's going to be a playlist with all of the other guide videos that will be coming to the channel. If you want to see it in a more organized fashion, there is a Halo Wars 2 guide channel on our Discord. It's a text channel that will have links to all of the guides that I'll be posting. And remember to check out that UNSC guide as well. After this, individual leader guides will be coming to the channel, so if you want to learn how to play more about a particular leader, be sure to check the playlist or that channel in the Discord server to see when your favorite leader guide video will be posting. That about does it for me. Thank you so much for watching this video, and please share it with others if you think this guide would be beneficial to them. The point that I want to make here is that I want everyone to have fun playing Halo Wars, and hopefully this guide helps them accomplish that. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you, James.